So in my own progression, I've had to confront lots of different issues like that. There was no other way I could confront them. No other way I could confront. How do I confront the fear of what you're going to say and do when I tell you I'm Jesus? Right. No, seriously, I considered staying home, trying to progress until I was at one with God before I would say to anybody who I am. Right? And I did think about that for quite some time, quite a few years actually. Right? Where I was so afraid to say anything to anyone because I knew there'd be projections, right? So what I did instead was I just stayed home and so how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? I don't know how to deal with this. There's fears there all the time. It's all there all the time. Then I realised I was doing the wrong thing. What I needed to do was get out there in front of a group of people, say it, and just let myself get hammered by the projections and let myself feel the emotion. Now, one of the places I did that first was at Florida, and there was a group of about 100 or so people in the audience, and I was talking about the divine truth with them. I was doing the introduction to the universe, the secrets of the universe type introduction that many of you have seen. And the first time, what I used to do before, I wouldn't say who I was at all, the entire discussion, right? But sooner or later, every single time, somebody would say, "How do you know this is true?" Guaranteed. And so, because I'm in the group and I want to stay in honesty and integrity and keep my connection with God, I would then have to say, "Oh, well, actually, I've experienced it all." And they say, "Well, how come that is the case?" And then who were you then in the first? It was a convoluted series of questions. Angie's been there, where someone had to ask me a whole chain of questions before I would actually admit to them that I'm actually Jesus. Does that make sense? And why did all that happen? Because I was totally avoiding and I was living in the fear of it rather than living in my desire. My desire was to teach, be up front. Right? So when I'm up front, half the audience leaves sometimes, but that's okay. The other half might stay and listen. So what happened at one time in Florida is I get a group of people, half of them are New Age people, and the other half go to a Christian church. So imagine this as an audience. So I say who I am, and instantly 30 people stand up, project rage at me and walk out the door. And I'm going, well, that's pretty, what do I say now? And then the other 60 or 70 basically just hammered me with all the reasons why they believed that couldn't be true. Right? So I had to work through all this judgment, condescension, all these beliefs about Jesus that people have that are all obviously very inaccurate. And all of these other things that just hammered me through the presentation. Now, I would never have dealt with the majority of those emotions without that event. But I had to create the event. Because I could have sat at home and somehow got to at one moment with God in 30 or 50 years' time, maybe before I died, and then dealt with the issue. Well, obviously I would have dealt with it through that period, but it's almost impossible, isn't it? And it's not the fastest thing to do. The fastest thing to do is confront the emotion. So how many of you ladies are actually scared of ever having a relationship with a man that's open and vulnerable? Yeah, where you're open and vulnerable. You're scared? Right. What you need to do is create one. Not a man. Create the relationship where you are open and vulnerable. So any man that's in your life right now, what you do is you start being open and vulnerable. Does that make sense? You don't wait to make him... You don't... See, many of you are waiting for a man who's nice, who will listen to it, who will listen to everything and who wants to hear you. Trust me, that's not going to make you open and vulnerable. All that's doing is pandering to your fear or your addiction of maintaining a fear, you see. So what you need to do is, right, choose the man who you find the hardest to be emotionally open and vulnerable and go and be emotionally and open and vulnerable to him. If he's in your life, I mean, you know, there's a law of attraction going on, right? If he's in your life, be open and vulnerable to him. And then let yourself own the emotion that goes on there. So you see, when I passionately desire change, I will passionately desire confronting situations to open myself up more emotionally. Right? Can you see that? Yeah. And if I allow myself to work my way through the fears that I have by doing the desirous thing, like acting in desire, what will happen is my changes will be rapid, but also they'll be more joyous because, you know, I haven't had to have the law of attraction pummel me for a year before I dealt with something, right? I actually volunteered to deal with it, and now I have a sense of pride, a sense of ownership in that process. I'm volunteering to deal with this. This is good. I know I want to deal with this. I'm volunteering to deal with this. I am going to stay in my desire to deal with this. And because I put myself in the desire to deal with it, and I'm volunteering to deal with it, it feels a lot better already, does it not? Rather than getting hammered again by law of attraction, going, oh, I hate this emotion, I hate this, isn't this terrible? And we're raving on to ourselves and anybody who will listen to how terrible my law of attraction is, and so forth. And in reality, of course it's going to be pain and agony during that place because I'm totally in opposition to God's laws in that moment. Because God's laws are going to demand eventually change of me. Right? That's what they do. Can we go